Welcome back to episode 6 of What's the Story, and today's a big change for us. We're here in Starfield Stud, part of Compass Stallions, with Michael Orlandi. A guy who's involved in the industry for a long time, knows about stallions, breeding, passionate about what he does. And I think today we're going to get a real deep insight into not just breeding from the stallion side, but we're also going to go Stonehall paddocks where he has got mares and foals. We're going to chat to him about that. He's not afraid of risk. This is a tough industry to be in, an industry I didn't know much about, to be honest with you, and I really enjoy learning about it. So come with me to have a chat with Michael as we look at the stallions, the breeding, and we go over to Stonehall paddocks as well and look at mares and foals. Michael Orlandi, thank you very much for having us here in Starfield Stud. It's a fantastic place. I've met you a few times, and look, it's our first What's the Story from the equine perspective. And look, I know you and what you do here, but I suppose give people a little bit of background. Michael Orlandi, who is he?
Who am I? I'm 36 years of age. I'm a Sagittarius, but more importantly, I stand Stallions of Starfield Stud under the Compass Stallion banner. We're 10 years now in business as Compass Equine. We're 8 years involved in the stallions. We've migrated stallions around the place, but we've now located stallions here as it would have been where I grew up, at Starfield Stud. Parents live a couple of houses down the road. Bit of history here. This was part of a big estate called Ballinagall. We would have passed the Herdsman College for down you see the Gate Lodge. In the distance there, where all the overgrowth is, where it was workers' colleges. And there's actually a bridge under the road where the animals and the workers had to cross under the bridge. So when I grew up originally, this was actually a forest, believe it or not.
Okay.
And the parents bought the land off Quilcha. We had ponies and all that, and I reseeded it and refenced it as a stallion station, you could say. And we moved the stallions here. So stallions are here now 5 years, and we stand 7 stallions here, 1 national stallion.
If I take you back though, before we talk about stallions, you didn't enter this world straight from college or per se. You said you'd ponies. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry before we talk, because we will see the stallions.
I suppose my parents have a fish and chip shop in town, a chipper, and we were fortunate growing up, myself, my brothers and my sister, to have ponies. So we had a bit of show jump and all that, so I had a big interest in that. My interest in racing, stemmed from going racing, and I was very fortunate. I had a primary school principal / teacher. I went to a small country school called Coolmore, and he used to bring me to Kilbeggan to the races, and he used to pick me up in at the time he had a Fiat Uno.
Because he knew you liked horses.
He knew I liked horses, and he liked going racing, obviously. And nowadays you couldn't do it. And he used to pick me up after school, and we'd go to Kilbeggan. And I'll never forget one horse I remember very fondly winning was a horse that belonged to Michael Orlandi, was called the Night Busker. Right. He won the Midlands National, and that was a big race in Kilbeggan. And my interest grew from there. I remember I went to the UCB local Point of Slaymoor, it's not there anymore. And I remember the Rosses were riding at the time, and Tony Ross, Anthony Ross won the race against his brother Willie Ross. So I had an interest like that, and I was, used to pick up maybe brochures for stallions and look at the stallions and look at catalogues and all that, but no obvious connection pat into it. A bit like a lot of things in the agriculture sector. People inherit a farm, whether it's in milking, sucklers, tillage, they're kind of born into that way of life, because it is a way of life. While, my parents, they had a chipper, they worked in a chipper, and but we were fortunate to have ponies, so I had an interest that way. I did a lot of show jumping, bit of hunting, and got to do a lot of that. And but as time progressed, my interest grew, and I, after my leaving cert, I did something that at the time was kind of a crazy thing to do, but it was probably a godsend, really. I took a gap year, which a lot of people call it, but quite common in the UK, and I went to Australia. Right. So at 18, I did my leaving cert.
Packed your bags and off you went.
Yeah, and I worked for Coolmore Australia. Very young, very naive.
How did you get that job? Did you see it?
It was advertised in Irish Field, and I applied for it without telling my parents, and I got it. And I remember I had to tell my parents I had to get a visa. You needed X amount of money in your account to get a visa, which I didn't have. So thankfully, my parents let me go. I couldn't understand if they didn't let me go. I was going to Australia. It wasn't like I was going over to England or.
Yeah, it's a big move at that age.
Yeah, at that age, and really, I had no life experience, yet I thought I did. And I remember going there, and Coolmore have a farm out in Jerry's Plains, and middle of nowhere. But I was so naive, and I had a great time there. There's a guy called Luke Cunningham that I live with, and he was very good to me, a Waterford guy. And he was a bit older than me, and he kind of took me under his wing because, like, I didn't know how to wash clothes, didn't know how to cook. And then there was a couple of other guys we lived with, Paul Mudaway and John. We had a bit of fun, but, you know, I worked, I learned a kind of, I suppose, a work ethos there. You know, at the time I didn't think it was hard work, but we worked hard and we played hard. We worked hard. Like, I remember we had every third weekend off. Like, it wouldn't exist nowadays. And it'd be a day and a half. You would do the morning on a Saturday, and you have the Saturday afternoon and Sunday off, and we'd all go into Sydney. But you'd take half the day Saturday, drive into Sydney, and go to King's Cross, stay in a hostel, go wild, spend all your money, and come back again. But that's when I knew I wanted to make a career in the thoroughbred industry, and it has fantastic stallions.
It just fitted for you, is it?
Yeah, like, Australia was a great place to be at the time because Coolmore had in Costa Lago. They also had Fast and Rock was coming along. Costa was top stallion, and I just saw, you know, went to the English sales at Easter in Sydney and stayed in Bondi, and I saw top, you know, the sold yearling for millions. I remember I led one year around and made $1 million plus, and it was just a great experience, and it really opened my eyes and gave me a great taste for it. And I then, from having no real experience to having been immersed in Coolmore Australia, and it was like crest of a wave Coolmore Australia at the time. You had the likes of Henry Field was working there, James Harlan. They've now, you know, they're two of the biggest names down there in their own right. And you know, it was just, it kind of opened my eyes and gave me a taste for it. I could have stayed down there, but I actually did the right thing. I came back and I went to UCD to do my degree, which I deferred, which was international commerce. So it was commerce with Italian. So I did that for 4 years. That was 1 year was an Erasmus in Italy, and I loved my time at UCD, and I won't change it for anything. I got heavily involved in you know, university life as a class rep and onto the student council, different things. And I think the year in Australia gave me experience and confidence and matured me to make the most of UCD. And then coming to the end of my time in UCD, that was a strange time. I would have went to UCD and Ireland was like booming. Ireland was, you know, crest of a wave, and the economy was very strong, and you really could have done anything. And when I was coming to the end of my time in UCD, the recession was on the horizon. And when we went,
you were one of the generation who qualified out into the recession.
Yeah, and like, you know, we did commerce, when you did general commerce or commerce international, you were probably knew you could get a graduate scheme in any walk of life and get a job out of it. But when we were coming into it, you know, everything was, a lot of them jobs weren't available. The big four, the big accounting firms had pulled back, and you're like, what are you going to do? And during my time in UCD, I used to do farmers markets because Ireland was booming. I used to sell like olive oil, Italian wine, granola, and different things. And you could have sold anything at the farmers market back then. And I like lecturer at the time that knew I did the farmers markets. And he said, what are you hoping to do? And I said, look, I'm going to apply for a Dairy Flying Start. And I was telling him what it was, and he gave me a reference. And Dairy Flying Start is a fantastic course that Sheikh Mohammed puts on. He picks 12 people around the world. He gives them a 2-year, I suppose, graduate degree. And I saw that as my opportunity and my ticket to the industry.
Yeah.
And I went for
in a big way. Like golden ticket. Like,
very much.
I'm thinking of Charlie and Chocolate Factory. The golden ticket. Yeah. So the golden ticket was there, and then it wasn't.
Yeah. And then remember, Clodagh Calvin asked me would I get one. She could help me get a bit of more experience and all that. And I kind of said to myself, look, maybe it's not for me and all this. I had second doubts, and obviously my parents, how, you know, my mother would be very supportive, and how supportive, you know, they are. She probably wanted me to get a job in the real world, you know, because I didn't really know how to go about it. And a lot of young people would struggle to kind of go from mucking out boxes to the next stage in this kind of industry. So in the meantime, the lecturer who gave me the reference said, look, there's a job going there in Irish Dairy Board, a graduate job, and I know you sold stuff in the farmers market. It's kind of a bit similar. So I went and I got a job at Irish Dairy Board based in Boston in the US, and I was selling Kerrygold butter and Dublin with cheese, and I had a great time. I was living in a great city in America. I was driving around in a Beetle car, Volkswagen Beetle that had like astroturfers grass and cows on it, so it got a lot of attention. And again, I loved it. And but I knew, I came back from a graduation, and Madeline Burns was in my year, and she's Maurice Burns of Rathasker Stud, Maurice and Teresa Burns. And I remember meeting Maurice there and asking, he goes, oh, you have a bit of an interest in this game? And I said, I do. And he said, look, if you ever want a job, you're welcome to have one. So I ended up handing in my notice in the Irish Dairy Board, and I came back and worked for Maurice. And obviously that wasn't...
And that's a risk as well, because the Irish Dairy Board, there's a path forward there, isn't there?
Definitely, you know, the graduate scheme, you know, you're paying into pension, you know, there was a huge opportunity. You're living in America, you know, it would have been the most obvious thing to do. And I packed it in to work for Maurice Burns. And I remember the first hearse I led around the ring was in Fairy House, called a hearse called Top Notch Tonto, who's by an unsuccessful stallion, as it's transpired, called 1,000 Words. But top-notch hunter transpired to be a very good animal for Brian Ellison. And I went from working for Maurice then. I did a year in sales for him and a bit of work for him. And he's like, look, what would you like to do? And I said, I'd love to work for a trainer. And he says, oh, and what kind of trainer are you thinking of? And obviously I could have mentioned Henry Cess at the time, or Aidan O'Brien, but I said Mark Johnston. Probably for a number of reasons. I knew Maurice knew Mark, so he got to put a word in for me.
Yeah.
But I suppose more importantly, Mark was, be very, very successful. And see, he had a different way of looking at things and doing things. He was a vet by trade. And I remember whenever he was being interviewed on television, I took a huge interest in what he had to say. He was very practical. He didn't come from a racing or a lineage background in racing, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He had no right to be as successful as he was. And he did it out of, sheer hard work. So he said, look, I put a word in for if you want. And I said, brilliant. So I got in touch with Mark, and at the time Mark was thinking of maybe employing me as a yard manager. He breaks up his yard into yard managers, assistant yard managers. And I went over and I spent time with him, and he said, you know what, maybe we'll do something different. So I pitched him this idea of a bloodstock and marketing manager, which was a role he never had before, which is... You
presented this
idea? Yeah, it's a role coming off in Australia. So in Australia you have trainers, and obviously you have assistant trainers, but you might also have people that would work for a trainer in a bloodstock marketing role, looking after owners, looking after the sales of yearling, the syndication of yearlings, going racing, and doing a lot of the part of the training that isn't the physical hands-on checking the legs in the evening time. And it's a role that's common in Australia because they have a lot of syndicates there. They're very client-orientated, customer-orientated, where in Australia people get updates on a regular basis and so on and so forth. So I pitched him the idea. He says, brilliant, come back with a bit more of a business plan. I did that, a bit more of a model. And Mark had a board at the time. Even though the board had no shares, he still had a board, And I pitched it to the board, and, he took me on. And this role I never had before. And it was fantastic. It was definitely, at different stages of your life, things are kind of moments that can have a huge impact. But Mark Johnston giving me a job probably has led me to where I am now, and I would have never been here otherwise, But
and did you not make that path for yourself?
You did. You do to a degree. But he could have given me a different job. Yeah. He could have did a lot of things differently. But I can't. He gave me a huge amount of his time. I never forget, he brought me to Keeneland with him, and we looked at, hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 yearlings in Keeneland. And he explained and showed me so much. I was heavily involved in sitting in different meetings and different occasions, and just being around Mark so often. And all you had to be was a sponge and just soak up things he was saying, and you can ask him questions. And the great thing about Mark was he never said anything for the sake of it. He always explained himself. There was a reasoning behind it, a very logical approach. And what I gained in my, I suppose, 2 years in Mark, because I did a bit of racing secretary work as well when Nicky McGrath was out, and I went racing, I looked after syndicates, owners, going to the sales. I could never put a price on it or a value on what I've learned. And then from that, I left and I went to Newmarket. An opportunity. I went out as a bloodstock agent, and I suppose I said 10 years ago. So that would have been 2014. I was 26. Very naive, thought this I could walk on water now. I'd done time with Mark Johnston, and I lived with a friend of mine there at the time, Mary Ash Deacon, and if it wasn't for her and her hospitality, I probably wouldn't be in business now because I made no money. Okay. And I only then I realised how tough it was being out on your own, and Tuchel looking for his ball, and how tough it was being out on your own, and that, there's a lot more to run a business than just going and, acting as an agent, buying horses for people. I was that naive, I didn't realise that.
Did you have a romantic view of it then?
I did, and I thought, these agents that I saw at the sale were making a great lifestyle for themselves. They obviously make a lot of money, but in reality, you charge 5%. It's industry standard. And if you charge 5%, you need to earn £1 million to make 50 grand, and that's your gross margin. Yeah. Like if you were on a corner shop, your margin is better than 5%. Yeah, of course. So the reality of it kicked in. Yeah. I said, this isn't going to be the lifestyle I would like to have. And in the meantime, I always had this kind of draw to be involved in stallions, because I always thought stallions was the end goal, and stallions is what dictates how the market goes. And so I was in touch. I knew a guy called James Axon through my show jumping days. James would have raced Equiano and stood him in partnership with Newsells. And James, I set up syndicates, and James got involved in my syndicates, and I was kind of remember meeting him at a July meeting, and half pitched the idea would he get involved in a stallion, and he said he would. And between the two of us, we kind of put a plan together, and we started off, and the first horse we bought was Capella Sansevero.
Okay.
That's son of showcasing. And we bought it from Qatar Racing, and he covered a lot of mares, and he bred Pierre Lapin, Group 2 winner.
Was he
No, that's when we had no facility, so we were like gypsies to some degree, moving around. So we had the stallions first in Bridgehouse Stud, and then we did a year in Clongiffin. And by that stage, I knew the model was kind of working to take the gamble of building all this, to build a covering shed, to build stallion boxes. So if it wasn't for James giving me the opportunity, with Capella, who was, I suppose commercially successful, then we bought another stallion called Strapper, and it was a total disaster. And I probably learned more from him being a disaster than Capella being a success. Because the success for Capella, I thought it was different things. The reality was just kind of how the market played out. But when things don't go right, you really have to reflect and say, well, why doesn't it go right? Why is this stallion so unpopular? And then you had to, I then realised, like a lot of things, you realise this isn't easy. This is an easy game. We then got My Dream Boat with their third stallion, some stallion that belonged to Paul and Claire Rooney. And then I suppose a break came when we got Caroccio. We stood him at the time in conjunction with Mr. Al-Raban. Now we own him outright ourselves. But he was the first horse that we covered a lot of mares with. We sold breeding rights in, and he made, look, this thing can work, And he had already had a couple of runners that had done well from a small crop, and he still has been very good to it. He's bred a stakes horse every season since we've had him. And so Caroccio gave us the confidence to go ahead with Starfield Stud and to build what we built here. And we're very fortunate that since then we've had new partners get involved. We have Far Above.
Will we go up and have a look at these stallions? I think you mentioned one very interesting thing there. You said all you had to do was be a sponge. And if you take anything, it's very hard to, very few people get that. Like when it comes to learning, like I know you, look, you're very open about, that it's not been an easy ride. You've had plenty of failures, but you're willing to learn. Yeah, like I think, look, most people don't open their eyes and open their ears. Most people think in a very lateral way. They don't, they don't have this kind of, you have to think and look around you, behind you, everywhere, and take it all in. And, there'll be people, we have a huge footfall of people that come into the yard, and, sometimes you'll pick up some off them, and you've got to be watching what you're doing and reflecting what you're doing, saying, well, what's going right, what's going wrong? Why is such a stallion getting more mares than another stallion? Or why did I think this stallion was going to be popular and he wasn't popular? Or why did a foal we thought a lot of didn't sell well? And, overview, and not just look at your own in-house, breeding and so on, but see what the overall market's doing, see what's happening in the global market, and see, there's great people out there, much wiser, clever people than me, and if I could just pick up a fraction every time to go forward, but most people have opinions and nothing else, but you really have to have, opinions that, when I spend time with Mark, with a thought process behind it, and really factual reason why you have this opinion. Why you're making decisions.
And your decision-making process can't be just on a whim. Now, I know people always refer to the famous green in luck, but it's not good enough. You can't just rely on luck.
No, but from what I know of this industry, and I don't know anywhere near what you know, but what my glimpses into it, you can't. It's just a ruthless, difficult industry. You have to think about it. Well, let's look at some of these stallions.
Super.
The yard is fabulous. It's so well presented. Michal, we're here in the yard. Toto and Sheila joined us there. Toto was coming along with you. He's dressed like Mini-Me. You're going to show us a couple of stallions.
Yeah.
And just as you show us the stallions, maybe talk to me about breeding and stallions and what's involved.
So we have 7 stallions down here.
Yeah.
We have 1 national stallion, Galileo Chrome. We've got 2 recent additions in Asymmetric and Space Traveller. Then we have Far Above, Dubarry Legend, who we're going to show you now.
Yeah.
Followed by Caroccio, and then we have King of Change at the end. So the stallions all live down here in, you could say, their own environment.
Yeah.
You have the walker there, their paddocks are this direction, and then they just go take a right up that gate for the covering shed. Now, they only go to the covering shed to cover mares, which means then that when they turn the corner, they know what's ahead of them, And we get them into a routine that, their libido picks up and all that. The season's coming to an end now, if not nearly over.
Okay.
And their feed rations will reduce.
Yeah.
And they'll start going out to their paddocks, and then they'll wind down, you know.
Okay. So, people see Sam is putting the bridle on there. They
Yeah.
might recognise Sam. Sam will be playing a big match on Sunday. Westmead versus Derry.
Yeah, he's played plenty of big matches for Westmead. I'm sure he'll play plenty more big ones. A lot of people come in and ask you, just double check, make sure that is the great Sam McCartan, and he doesn't charge for autographs just yet. We always had a guy called Michael Orlandi who worked here with Lou's feet out here, who was a great footballer, won an All-Star, and yeah, so one of the criteria is if you want a job, you need to play sport at a very high level. So this is Dubawi legend. His first crop are foals. He's obviously son of the legendary Dubawi. He was the second highest rated 2-year-old of his in Europe of his year. And he'd have a Ravens Pass mare. He's had fantastic first foals. So because of that, he's had a lot of repeat customers. And
has he had anything on the track yet?
no, they're only foals. His oldest are only foals.
Okay. Talk to me about stallion management then. Managing these guys.
So, I suppose the season starts. We start covering mares in theory the 14th of February, but the season starts really. Just wait there, Sam will do the first thing. In November.
Yeah.
So probably from the 1st of November we start bringing them in. We start rugging them up. We start increasing their feed. We start getting them fit. Their holidays are over, and they need to be relatively fit with plenty of condition for a busy season ahead. And then in the turn of the year, around Christmas time, you'll have people coming to inspect them. So you want to make sure they're looking well. And then with a new stallion, it's very different.
Say that again now.
With this would be a stallion as a stud for a number of seasons. That's the routine. Then we would start. They go on the walker, getting fit. But when they go and cover a mare, we wouldn't exercise them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The most they would cover would be 4 a day. There is days this year that we might have done 5 or 6. I try to avoid that.
Yeah.
You can walk away there, Sam, if you want. And with a first season stallion, it's different because you have to teach them how to cover a mare.
Yeah.
And obviously, teach them how to cover a mare and so on and so forth. So when he first arrived, we had got what we call test mares, which are normally foster mares, batty mares, and teach them, about the birds and the bees.
Yeah.
Normally, nature takes over. But one thing you're hoping for is that they have a good appetite, a good libido.
Yeah.
You can't insure for libido. You can insure for their first season subfertility. So if they don't get X amount of mares in fall, you can claim insurance on them.
Okay.
But the criteria is quite difficult. A lot of mares, like for example, maiden mares don't count. Mares that are barren for two years don't count. Mares older than 15 don't count. But what you can't insure for is their libido, their appetite to do it.
Yeah.
And
it's not a guarantee.
no, you see some stallions that might have huge appetite to do, but their fertility might be great.
Okay.
Or you might have a stallion that's very, very fertile, but not that keen on covering mares. Okay. And you can't exactly put on a blue movie for them. To get them into the mood, Plus,
I haven't heard the word blue movie used in a while.
So it all depends on. So this is Dubawi legend.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's, as his name suggests, he's the son of Dubawi. Dubawi, the champion stallion, a leading sire of sires in the shape of Knight of Thunder, Sarak, Nube, Tudor and Hot. So we're very, very fortunate to stand the son of Dubawi here. And
can you tell me about the physical part? So you mentioned to me before 3 Ps at one stage.
So
talk about the physical nature. When you look at a horse like this, what are we looking at?
So he'd be typical of a Dubawi, compact, relatively short back.
Okay.
He's quite good looking for one. They can be touched on the plain side. He's a quality head to him. Great colour, typical colour of Dubawi himself. Got good clean limbs on him. He's not overly big. He measures 16 hands, but he's probably typical of what you expect. You can walk away there, Sam, of his sire, of his pedigree. He's also typical of the fact that he was a very good 2-year-old. So you can see that he came to hand quick. Physically, he could come to hand quick. Runs a 2-year-old. He's not a big, tall, lanky, rangy horse. He walks relatively well. He's a good step to him, and his foals walk very well. So physically, he is what his race performance and his pedigree suggests. Okay. So he was a good 2-year-old. He looked like he could have ran a 2. He was son of a Dubawi. He looks like a son of Dubawi within reason, very much like a son of Dubawi. Some look more than others. He's a bit bigger than average son of Dubawi. He's probably a bit more quality than some of them. And Sam will just stand him up. You can stand him up again, then Sam, and we can get a close look at him. But look, he definitely fills the eye. and physically he's what you would perceive him to be. You know, he's he's a great temperament. He's got a fantastic appetite to cover mares. He's very fertile. There are
So he
things.
ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know when you get involved in a stallion if you're going to be fertile, if you're going to have good libido. You know. This is his second season, so he's filled out since he came from the racetrack. You know.
Okay.
They all get precision in their feed every morning.
Yeah, what's the precision? So what
huge,
have you
huge.
seen with precision with with managing the horses, stallions even?
Look, you keep them walking here, Sam. So the precision stallions can get quite stressed during the coming season, especially new stallions. There's a new routine for them.
Yeah.
And also you want them to thrive. So making sure they have a good hind gut, they're absorbing their food correctly. There's no point shoveling the food into them and not getting anything out of it, you know? You need them to be able to absorb all the nutrients you're giving to them. And also, when you're showing them, I think, you know, as I said to them, the season starts in November time. It doesn't really start the 14th of February.
Yeah.
Seam is made roughly 8-12 weeks in advance. You need a healthy animal then. We find precision is crucial in getting them their well-being in general. Do you know what I mean? And getting them to absorb the food.
And you've seen a difference. I think early on you've been one of the very first early adopters of the product for long-term use. You could see the difference in horses.
Massively. Even when they come in off the track to us. And now obviously they're coming from a different environment, a racing environment, a high stressed environment, but being still can be stressful as well. And we can see them really letting down, really, you know, licking their pots, and we would like, it's without a shadow of a doubt, something that we give both to stallions, mares, foals, yearlings. We see it as very much as not anymore just a supplement. It is something we give. It's no different. Yeah, part of the routine, part of the diet. A supplement can refer to something that you give on and off. It's a supplement to boost. We just think we wouldn't have horses without giving them precision. And especially when they come out of training, because a lot of times they don't get much turnout when they're in training. They're quite a stressful environment and all that. So the precision definitely kicks in and making them relaxed and really getting the most out of their and you know, we all know like the stallion has a very small, or the horse has a very small stomach, it's like the rugby ball. They're made up of just intestine.
Yeah.
So it's mad that we don't do anything about all this intestine.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That was the one thing, and I wouldn't have had much experience with equine digestion or nutrition up to 4 years ago until I got involved in this project. But like sometimes when you come in with a clean slate, you look and you say, well, yeah, the stomach is 10% of the volume here, and 90% of the chatter.
Yeah.
What about this hindgut? So
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
and like, you know, people we were naively comparing them to cattle and other stock animals, but they're not like cattle.
No,
they're not like sheep. They're very unique. You know, they evolved to be a flight animal, to gallop, to move, to constantly move. And we now box them up all day instead of moving them all day. And they're literally full of gut. Do you know what I mean? And so it's really important that we look after that gut on them. And you can see the shine in him there.
He looks $1 million. We're going to go over look at mares. Do you want to show us another stallion?
Yeah, we'll show you one more before we go.
Yeah,
So we're going to show you King of Change, which is physically a very different type of animal to Dubarry Legend. He's a Group 1 winner, which is quite impressive and performance-wise. He's second in the Guineas, which is a classic, the 2000 English Guineas. And he is his first runner, so he's a much further down the road than Dubarry Legend. His breeds up sold well. There's good talk about his runners. He's a runner tonight for Joseph O'Brien. He had a runner yesterday for Gerard Lyons. He ran well in Leopardstown, a very good maiden.
So these are the first of his runners.
First of his runners. And really his fate depends to some degree on how these get on.
Okay.
Obviously they have to run again next year as a 3-year-old, and he'd be really decided then. But
yeah, that's an interesting thing. So when is the decision made on a stallion? Because they've done the genetics and the breeding.
They have a very short lifespan. So roughly they've got, so you retire them to stud. So the first year they're covered mares. Yeah. The second year they're foals. They become yearlings. Then they have runners. That's 4 years. And really year 4, if they can get away with it, going to year 5. They have 4 to 5 years to make a career for themselves as stallions. In general, for every 20 stallions that go to stud, 18 fail.
18 fail.
Yeah, they won't have a career as a stallion in Ireland or the UK. They might have a career as a stallion maybe at a lower division in Italy or France or somewhere. But in general, you know, you have to think about standing a stallion in Ireland in particular is like standing a stallion in a football team in the Premiership. So if they don't cut the mustard, they're gone. We're very critical of them, rightly or wrongly, it depends. And of the two that succeed, one will succeed at a high end, and one will just succeed that he's good enough to stay a stud. That is a job for him. For the next 5-10 years.
Say that again. So 1 to 18 to be successful. And
so
then
out 20 of them, 18 of them won't be a stud
Yeah.
in say 6 years.
After their second year of progeny on the ground.
On the ground. So roughly maybe 5-6 years from going to stud. Or there won't be a stud in Ireland. There might still be a stud elsewhere. Okay. And then of the two that do survive, one will probably go up the ladder and be a successful stallion. The other one might go up the ladder a bit, but all he's done is he's achieved enough to be still a stud. Yeah. To stay in the market, you know what I mean? Yeah. And because the market can only soak up so many stallions as well. It's not enough mares to fill every stallion. So most breeders are looking for the next big stallion and get that stallion on an upward trajectory, because when a stallion becomes proven, they become very expensive, and they're not, in a price range for all your average breeder. We would all love to use proven stallions, but they all cost a lot of money. Okay. So for example, a lean stallion, a Kildangan stud, is Night Thunder, but he's 100,000. Okay. So breeders are looking for the next Night Thunder when he was standing at a lower fee. Yeah.
So those first progeny hitting the track is a very interesting time for you, I presume. Yeah. You watch with bated breath.
Yeah, you watch with bated breath. Really, how it works is you first try to target a stallion, or a racing prospect that might become a stallion. Yeah. And you're hoping that, geez, we'd love to get our hands on him. He ticks a lot of boxes. Obviously, we're at the bottom of the market here, so we can't tick as many boxes as we like to tick. And we look to get a stallion that we think would suit our clientele, the breeders, but more importantly, stallion you think he could make it. He has the ingredients to make it. Then you get them, and then obviously you go and you try to advertise them and market them and cover mares. You have to attract a good book of mares to them and breeders in them. From then on, you're hoping they have nice foals on the ground, and the foals are well appreciated in the marketplace when they go to the sales and they sell well. Then you're hoping that them foals become yearlings and they sell well and go to good trainers, and then they go to the trainers, and obviously then you're hoping.
There's a lot of, as you say it to me out loud, Michal, there's a lot of.
Yeah. The odds are always against you. Yeah. And then you're hoping the trainers, they go well with the trainers, they don't get injured, they're successful. And then they're doing a racetrack. Now remember, they're not doing it against other first season stallions. Yeah. They're doing it against proven stallions that have offspring. It's not like a race, a maiden of 10 runners is made up of 10 first season stallions. It's made up of 3 first season stallions and 7 proven stallions that are standing a much higher fee. So the odds are really against these lesser stallions coming on the marketplace, and that are unproven. And so this is a big year for King of Change. Now,
we'll take a look at this guy.
Him being more of a 3-year-old type, we would expect him to have better 3-year-olds, but he still has to achieve some amount with his 2-year-olds, especially when his breeds are sold so well. So, as you can see, he's a much taller, rangier type, bigger stride than him, covers more ground, much more imposing. He nearly has that kind of Belgian blue double muscle on his hind quarters when you see him now standing up.
You can see that, sorry, you walk across the camera, Mike, you can see that back end on him. He's just a different type of horse again.
Yeah. He was a miler, so he ran over a longer trip than the last fella.
So, is there a certain mare suits a certain stallion, or?
Yeah, look, in theory you would say he would suit a smaller, more compact mare because he would offer them things that they don't have. Yeah. But at the level we're at, that amount of thought and process doesn't really go into it. Okay. People probably want to use a stallion they like, whether like their criteria or whether their credentials. And they're not that worried whether the stallion suits or not, really, Okay. They probably should put more into it, but he will get more compact, smaller mares. Like, if you stand into him, he's a total different, much more bigger, imposing type.
Yeah, he's a different animal altogether, isn't he?
Oh, what a big man.
He is a different animal.
The real man's head to him.
He does, yeah.
The war horse, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, Napoleon rode a horse called Marengo in Tibetan most of the time.
Right, he's a Marengo.
He's a Marengo.
He's beautiful. Thanks for taking him out, Sam. So, I suppose, Michael, we've looked at the stallions, right? We've looked at the stallions, and we're over here now in a really important element of the business. Explain to people what happens in Stonehall.
So in Stonehall, predominantly we have mares and foals and yearlings. Okay. So all the young stock lives here, and all the mares live here. So we've seen the stallions, that's where we cover the mares in Starfield. Yeah. And then the mares obviously live here 24/7, 365 days of the year. Yeah. We foal them up in the top yard. Yeah. Or sorry, the main yard, I should say.
We've been up there this morning when we saw Polly scanning.
Exactly, we fold them in the main yard with a folding unit there. and then the mares would migrate from that part of the farm up to this part of the farm. These foals are the older bunch of foals that are living out fully now. As you see, we have a creep feeder. We feed the foals in a creep feeder.
That's a new design. Is that a new design I've seen in a few places?
Yeah, we've had them for a couple of years now. We find them very good.
Okay.
And then the foals would be weaned here, and then the mares would then migrate back towards the main yard, where then they would be split into groups of when they're due to foal.
Yep.
And then obviously the foal and the cycle starts again. And then the foals here that were weaned will become weanlings. From that stage, we'll move further up the farm, and then they go into the yearling paddocks. And then we have the winter yearling paddocks and you could say the spring, summer yearling paddocks. And then from there, then the yearlings then would move back to Starfield, where we will start the prepping process to prep them for the sales.
There's so many elements in the business, isn't there?
No, exactly. Now the foals, we would sell some of these as foals.
Yeah.
And the foals are prepped here in Stonehall in the top yard here. And so hence we would wean them in this area of the farm beside the yard where we're going to prep them for the sales, etc.
They're beautiful paddocks. They're very safe paddocks as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Look, thankfully when we came here, everything was relatively well fenced. Needed a bit of fixing up to do. There's plenty of shelter. Look, we maintain the paddocks as best we can through fertiliser, etc. And we do plenty of topping as well. We spray the weeds. Look, I think what you get out of the land is what you put into it. This is in a vein of land that's very good itself, but it's definitely very important that we maintain the land as best we can.
Can't take it for granted, yeah.
No, and especially with a very wet winter, wet spring. So the land would need a lot of kind of TLC now going forward. We don't have any big barns that we winter animals in, so we winter everything out.
Yeah.
So it's important we maintain the land as best we can. And these are good paddocks, plenty big enough. As you see, there's 5 mares here. This is probably 4 or 5, maybe 6. We try to keep 4 or 5 mares at a time together, mainly because it's a good number for the creep feeder.
Yeah.
It's an easy enough number to manage. They're not overly hard in the paddock. And on top of that, the foals in general are all bunched together the same age. And it's a nice number to do anything with, whether you're worming them, doing a farrier, etc., etc. I think when paddocks get very big and numbers get very big, you increase your chance of maybe accidents happening, things going wrong, and you have even a bigger herd to manage, you know, and whatever you're trying to handle them.
Tell me, Micheál, right, so you're over your busy season. Let's talk about managing foals that are, mares that are falling down. Like, that is probably a very intense period of time, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot can go wrong. We've had a few, obviously, things didn't go right this year. Not everything goes right. We fold
I'm
probably.
surprised you're not one of those people, everything's perfect, no?
No, sadly not. We probably foaled 30 odd mares. We're finished foaling now, all the thoroughbreds. We have one sport horse mare left to foal, but she's quite unique. She lives on her own and she has her own little world. But in general, for example, this one of the first mares we foaled. This is a Minzal filly out of Sparkling Beam. And one thing you'll notice, we don't have any head colours in the foals.
Yeah.
We do put head colours on them when they live in the main yard and they get let out every day. But when they live out fully, we don't leave any head colours on them, on the basis that they can't get their head caught in anything and get caught up. You know, a mare can pull a head collar off and break it, but a foal can't. And just in case they get their head caught in a branch or something like that, this is another mare with a king of change. So yeah, the foaling time is difficult, it's stressful. Michael does the majority of foaling, who you met here, Michael O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Look, I would say 8, 9 times out of 10, there's no issue.
Yeah, they'll fall on their own.
Yeah, with a bit of a system, but everything goes straight forward. Then you'll have 1 or 2 times out of 10 things go wrong. And in them situations, being there on site, like for example, we had one mare here, just in the distance, she had a red bag, so we had to get the foal out very fast. And that's a Dubai Legend foal. So, you know, you have to be there on the spot. And then the other time you need definitely veterinary assistance. We have a great team of vets and Monogacrian vets that come here. But then there's the odd situation that unless you're in an equine hospital, very little can be rectified on site, you know. And we had that this year with one mare in the position to foal, and we lost both the mare and foal. But you know, I suppose we're not right beside a veterinary hospital. The closest one's probably the Curra direction. But you know, you really need a crystal ball to know something like that's going to happen. Unlike cattle, where C-section is very common, it's very rare in our industry. The mare probably doesn't go back and foal after. You know, it's not like cattle. Cattle have a C-section every year if they wanted to, and it wouldn't affect their system at all. But look, it is worrying, it is stressful, but thankfully, as I said, 8, 9 times out of 10, there's no issues. Your maiden mares are a bit trickier, they've never foaled themselves before. And we have one maiden mare here, that chestnut mare with a, yeah, she's a maiden mare with a Dubai Legend foal at foot. Maiden mares a bit trickier. They haven't foaled before. You don't know their routine, their patterns. Some mares will develop a way kind of to bag up for a long time, remind me bag overnight. And also you have to be careful the mare will take to the foal, and they normally do you know what I mean? But sometimes maiden mares can take strange to the whole thing. But thankfully, look, we have a good team of staff here. And look, it works reasonably well. But when you've got livestock, you have the possibility of having dead stock, sadly.
How important is it? And I've heard you mention a few times, and when you look at the stallions, you look at the bedding and you look at the housing, you've put a lot of effort into, we'll say, optimizing the environment for them. So you put thought into no collars on the foals, setting up your paddocks.
We do the ring feeders. Look, you're looking for an extra angle every time, and a part of it's, it's driven by different factors. It's driven by the economical factor, what's economically viable to do. We bed everything, mares and foals, on straw. We find it safe. We find it's very comfort for the mares and foal. It's relative, even though straw's gone up in price, it is cheaper than good shavings. It's easy to get rid of, dispose of to local farmers, you know. But then we would have the stallions on shavings, on blue frog shavings, and we have the horses in Starfield on that as well. But look, we're looking for every angle, whatever that might be. You learn every year, you tweak things as you go. We don't really know. You know, we're still a young, naive business.
Aren't we all?
But we're trying to do it our best. And every year we might do things differently. We might use paddocks differently. But this is, and look, we use, for example, this paddock for mares and foals. It's, as you can see, it's a good shelter paddock.
Beautiful paddock,
They have another paddock beside them that they go into after that, and we rotate them. We have the top yard beside us. We have to bring them in for the farrier, for Liam Mullen or Matthew Smith. It's easy to bring them in. To do veterinary work, it's easy to bring them in, not bring them down. So that's how we utilise the farm as best we can. This is an interesting case. This foal wasn't very well when it was born, neither was the mare.
Right.
But look at them now, they're 100%.
Absolute beauty.
100. This is a very big king of change.
He's absolute. He's a huge horse.
Yeah,
a huge foal.
Yeah, lots of bone, lots of substance. He's going to start losing his coat there now. But in general, most of the foals here, bar the Minzal, are all by stallions that we stand ourselves.
Okay, so they're all. So you're controlled. You have the stallions and you have the mares.
Yeah, so majority of the mares we have get covered to our own stallions, obviously, to support them, and nearly all the mares here, bar a handful, are owned by us or in partnership with other people. But we don't board many outside mares.
Talk to me about, and I know, and again, it's something I'm a little bit very naive to, is understanding the breeding and how important that is, and the selection of your mare and the selection of your stallion. And you have to, I know, talking to you, like yourself before, you're so into it, and you have to know the pedigrees, the families. Yeah. Is there an exact science to it? Or, is it a completely exact science, or do you need a little bit of luck from time to time?
You definitely need a bit of luck. Luck's a key ingredient in life, in every walk of life, I think. But don't base your breeding model on luck. Base it on facts and figures. And factually, for example, pedigrees with a lot of black type, we call it. Black type is heavy print in the pedigree, and heavy print replicates horses that are placed or win group or graded races. Yeah. So when people refer to a pedigree a lot of black type, it means the pedigree a lot of good animals, above average animals. And fundamentally, them pedigrees produce better horses. Black and white ink doesn't lie. And normally we would look at mares and fillies that we would be buying would come from good pedigrees or were very successful in racetrack themselves. You can't get what you don't have. Okay. So it's very hard really to breed a good horse from an average or poor pedigree, because it was never there in the first place. Yeah. And so what you put into is really what you get out of is what you put into. So we would look at, we keep on trying to upgrade our mares, upgrade our pedigrees, as best we can. We also look at broodmare sires. That's definitely a factor. It doesn't happen by accident that there's some stallions end up developing as good broodmare sires. We look at mares that might suit our stallions, both on pedigree and on type. People would normally look at an animal and you kind of look at the 3 Ps. And so you look at first their physical, what they look like, and then you look at their pedigree, who their parents are, who their mother, or who the father is, who the mother is, and so on and so forth. And then you look at the race course performance. The 3 Ps.
It's a good model.
Yeah.
Pedigree, performance, and the physical nature.
Yeah, exactly what they look like. You could throw in, pot luck then as a 4th P, if you wanted to.
And you add in the one P I'd like to add in there is the precision
microbes.
as
Yeah,
part of that story.
definitely. And like, you know, you're looking at what do we do for extra angle. We very much look at something like precision. We find it exceptional. We really do. And we give it to the stallions. The mares get it. The foals now they get, or on the Creefier they get it. The earns get it in their prep. You're looking for that extra 1%, 2%, 5%. We give it to all foals that are born. Get it every second day. Okay. And they'll get it every second day while they're standing in. How long they stand in depends on the weather and so on and so forth. But roughly, mares will come in every night for the first probably 2-3 months of their lives, the first half of the year. Then when the weather picks up, maybe the first month, 6 weeks. But then from then on, they get it in their creep feeders.
Well, Michael, will we go and have a look at the yearlings and sort of, and maybe a look forward to where Micheál's going, where Compass Stallions is going in the future as well?
I suppose in reality, Tommy, the trick is not to go broke. You know, we're trying to stay in business. It's the market currently is
it's tricky.
It's very tricky. It's not very positive. It's probably going to be like that for another year, 2, maybe 3. It's an election year in the UK, as we know. 80% of thoroughbreds produced in Ireland are exported to the UK. It's our biggest trading partner by a country mile.
So the likes of Brexit and instability in the UK creates worry in the industry, doesn't it?
More likely it's going to be Labour government. It's not that I'm a Conservative or not, but like Labour, Conservative would have been a friend of racing in the UK traditionally. So look, it's going to be challenging times. We came out of COVID, which was a very bizarre time in the history of the world, and we had a real bull market in the thoroughbred industry, and people then bought mares like ourselves, and we invested on the back of a bull market. But now we're into a bear market, and things aren't so positive. And cost of production, whether it's your feed, your bedding, your labour costs, your insurance, everything's going up. But the product itself isn't really increasing in value. Now you forget about the top end, so we don't really compete at the top end, but the middle is tricky and the bottom is as good as disappearing. There isn't the appetite in the UK, first and foremost, to buy the volume they were buying. And that's, as you said,
when you say who the customer is there now, Micheál, who is the customer?
So,
when you
take out your top end, which is made up of multinational people that run countries, your big heavy investors from the Middle East, or your people maybe whether they're top end people in Irish or UK economy or anywhere around globally. These people will continue to buy. No different if you're selling top end art, top end anything. There's always a demand for the very top, the creme de la creme. So if we had a field full of Frankels or Dubawis, we have no issue selling them. But we have a field full of Dubawi Legends and Far Aboves and Carroccios and so on. So we're catering for your average racehorse owner, and your average racehorse owner is the person that makes up the volume of horses in trade in the UK, and with them, they have Brexit, but it all depends on their own nature of their own business, and.
Is it only a racehorse for some people, a luxury, obviously?
Oh, definitely a luxury. Definitely a luxury.
I do see, and even groups of friends, you're sitting around and you have a couple of beers, maybe you have too many beers, and you say, God, we'd love to own a racehorse. What about syndicates? Is that an element of
Definitely. Syndicates are a huge thing in Australia and probably should be a bigger thing in the domestic market in Ireland and the UK. It is growing. A friend of mine, Jack Canton, runs syndicates racing, quite successful. But then you've got other big syndicates. But the problem we're having is that the demand isn't there. No one buys a racehorse or a yearling to be a racehorse or a 3-year-old sore to be a racehorse on the presumption to get a return. But with the cost going up and the return prize money very poor in the UK, for example, okay in Ireland, people wonder and scratch their heads. Now, obviously, you didn't buy the animal in the first place to make money. But when we look at, France, a neighbouring jurisdiction, and we look at Australia, for example, or even America, where there's the potential to get maybe a return on owning an average racehorse, not a top one, an average one. Now, obviously, the funding models are very different. They run on PMU system in France, a TAB system in Australia. Hong Kong itself is very unique, not an in-house tote. But so when you have owners and but look, forget about your average owner, maybe saying, look, I can have a string of horses in France, it's going to cost me Y, but I'm going to get X out of it. I have the same string in England, it's going to cost me Y, and I'm going to get it now. I'll get Z out of it, probably a minus, and then that affects obviously the UK market where we export a lot of horses too. But look, there's a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of reasons why the market is the way it's gone. And the fundamental reason is the demand just sits there currently. And things come in waves, and we know that, and there's peaks and troughs, and we just have to punch clever and get through it, and not overly expose ourselves. And in previous recessions, good stallions came through. So we're hoping that, through this turbulent times, that we can sail the good ship Compass and come out, the other side of it with hopefully 1 or 2 successful stallions and reap the rewards when the market picks up,
Excellent, okay. Well, we'll take a look at the future breeding stock here before we finish up then. We're in Compass, we're going to Stonehall, we're in Stonehall here. How many people are employed in the business?
We have 4 full-time staff, and then there's myself. Really just probably 3 of them based full-time in Stonehall, and then 1 person looking after stallions in Starfield, and then I would do roughly all the covers with that person.
Okay.
Yeah, there's times you probably need more staff during the busy springtime. You're doing a lot of foal and all coverings, and then in the off season things quiet down a bit. But that's when the lads take time off and so on and so forth. You can never have enough of good staff.
Yeah.
And
how, when you say good staff, what's involved there? Is it people with good horsemanship skills, people that can work together? What's the secret ingredient?
Yeah, look, I haven't been employing people that long, and I know it's one thing the pressure is always make sure the staff are paid every Friday.
Yeah.
And then, they have to be paid every week, and then you have to pay the bank every month. But in general, I suppose good staff, it's obviously good horsemanship, but some people have that, some people don't. But I'm not too worried about their horsemanship. It's just people, that work well together, does a day's work, and suppose do what they're told, and are willing to learn and put a shift in. And you're dealing with animals, and things vary quite a lot. And they've got to be kind of hearse aware, if that makes sense. And look, there's certain things you can't teach people, and they either have it in them or not. Okay. But look, we have a good bunch of staff there now. We got Michael O'Reilly, who manages Stonehall. We've got Tommy Burns, who looks after Starfield. We've got Sam McCartan, who came to us with no experience, and he really is exceptional now. And then we've got Alan Hannigan, who started with us this year, always looking for new staff, because I just think good staff make everything work better, and makes us more successful. Like, people are important in the business.
Yeah, because if we look out on the farm here, this is the future, you want to grow. I presume you don't want to stand still.
No, you got to keep moving forward. At the moment we do a bit of the stallions, the main thing in the business, but really they're just treading water unless they hit. But while they're treading water, it's an exciting time, The breeding side of things, the way the market's gone, is tricky, but it is beautiful, and is very much a romantic idea where you breed hearse and you hopefully breed winners, and they're successful. And we do a bit of pinhooking, not as much as we have done previously. Last year we bought very little, and that's more high risk. So we're doing a bit of everything. We also do the agency work where we buy on behalf of clients. We enjoy that. That doesn't pay overly well, because just the nature of the business, you charge 5%. But saying that, we really do enjoy that.
But you have great connections to that as well.
It definitely helps. But look, Tommy, you're only as good as the last horse you bought. You know what I mean? Okay. And in reality, most of them you buy are going to be no good or average. Because most horses are average or no good.
Yeah. And it's a very difficult game.
Yeah, and the budgets we have wouldn't be massive, but we just try to buy as best we can for the budgets we have, and try to deliver as best we can for the clients we're buying for. And we have some very, very loyal clients, and we'd be lost without them. They mean the world to us, and some of them, a lot of them have become friends. And so when you feel when you buy the animal, it's just the start of the story with that client you're buying for, because you're going to follow the horse through, watch every time it runs. Do you know what I mean? And you want to do just as well as the person who owns it. But look, there's different facets to the business. The stallions would be definitely the core of it, and what we probably our one true love is the stallions. But we enjoy all of it, and it merges well together, because the first half of the year is busy covering and foaling, and the second half of the year is mainly made up of going to the sales and buying for clients and so on and so forth.
So tell us what we're looking at here in Micheál. This is the future stock.
Yeah, just a 6 course here now. The grey one coming to us, kind of I suppose a Roni steel grey, is the first photo of Lola Showgirls by Oasis Dream. This guy means a lot to us. Lola is a mare we bought. Well, we bought Lola as a foal from Noel and Jill Finnegan. first crop of Night of Thunder. Lola went on and won a Royal Ascot for Kevin Lloyd and won a Group 3. So she's one of our flag bearers of success that we've bought. And she is currently has a beautiful foal by Woodham Bassett, her second foal, and she's currently holding service to Sea the Stars. So she's very important to us. She was a top class race mare, and that's her first yearling. And he's very nice. He's by a proven stallion in West Stream, a top stallion that stands in the UK. And he'll go to a yearling sale in the autumn time, or come October time, early winter. So that's one we bred. Then we have the chestnut guy beside him. He's the first foal of a mare that we bred. Sadly, we lost this year, called Wine and Roses. It's a colt by Far Above. He's a cracking first foal, really strong, really typical of the stallion. And he's great bone, great muscle mass, and really good first foal. He'll go to one of the earlier yearling sales. And again, a homebred. This is one of the only foals we bought. And this is Sergei Prokofiev, yearling, who's a first season stallion, stands in Whispering Manor Stud, who's doing very, very well. Again, he's a sharp, precocious type. He'll go to one of the earlier sales. He is a full sister to a winner that we bought as a yearling for Dave Loughnane, called Flicker's Girl. And one of the reasons why we bought him the foal, we like the yearling that much, And then in the distance, you'll see a very big Far Above, who is a full brother to a 2-year-old by Far Above that's in train with Gemma Tutty. So we hope that goes well for his potential sales. And then in the very far distance, we have a Galileo Chrome, a very tall, lean, angular horse. Very much a middle distance horse, even though he's by what is described as a jump stallion, Galileo Chrome. He's half to Alrifa, who's a Group 1 tour winner for Joseph O'Brien, who's a top class racehorse who, probably going to hopefully continue on and win more Group 1s for Joseph and his team. So he's very much a different shape to these sharper, more precocious type. And then we have a little weedy year in the back. He's a late foal, and he did have a great start in life. But look, that won't stop him from running, But he's a smaller type than the rest of them, being a later foal and having a not such a good start in life. But look at him now; he's fine, and he'll catch up in time.
Michal, this is some of the future. We've been around your two businesses, your two farms. We've met some of your team. If you were to write the future for you, right? What does it look like? What does it look like for the next 5 to 10 years?
We probably were 10 years in business this year. And we're 8 years involved in stallions. We probably didn't envisage to be as far on as we are. We really were chancing our arm, and we're probably still chancing our arm a bit and doing a bit of spoofing. This is a very difficult industry. We're up against not just world-class people, but people who have evolved the industry. You're up against the likes of Coolmore, the Magners, you've got the Sheikh Maktoum family in Darley. You've got fantastic people. You've got the likes of John Massar in Australia, now Henry Field in Newgate. You've got, Yashid in Japan. These people aren't just successful in life, but they're very successful in this industry. And obviously we're not competing directly with them, but we're still in the same game. And as from probably the industry has changed, definitely a stallion game. Stallion's income was tax-free for a long time. That went in probably 05, 06, kind of in line with the recession. And so we entered the stallion market at a time where there's less stallion farms, and the majority of stallions, the market share were with a couple of studs. So we have Tallyho beside us. They probably cover the most mares per capita of flat stallions in probably Europe. So the competition is very tough. But we've entered it, and thankfully we're still at it. And that's really thanks to the people that have got involved with us, our partners in the stallions, people that trust us to stand the stallions. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be where we are. But we're hoping to grow the stallion business, to hopefully have, most expensive stallion is advertised at €6,000 at the moment in Dubai with Legend. And we're hoping that might creep up and creep up. And it kind of has to creep up the way the market's going, And then, so in 5, 10 years' time, we're hoping to develop the stallion business. We probably hope to improve our broodmare band, hopefully build by better broodmares, breed obviously more winners. And, so far the most success of a winner we've bred is Gustavus Weston, that we bred in conjunction with Ellie Hard, who won a Group 2. So it'd be great to breed a Group 1 winner someday. But look, not everyone does that, so we're happy that we bred a Group 2 winner. So we want to breed more winners, keep the business going, grow the business, definitely the stallion side of things. At times I just hope that I'm still in business, because it's so tough. And, it's at times it's kind of a bit of hand to mouth, because the industry is so vulnerable to the market conditions around it. So, we had Brexit, we had COVID, who knows what was going on with COVID. Strangely enough, the market was quite resilient during COVID and after COVID. But I do know that because I stand stallions and I have my own broodmare band, not just do I lose if a stallion fails, and you lose, you know, the fact is the stallion's no good and he's...
With your mares,
Yeah,
your breeding.
but your mares, then your whole broodmare band is devalued because you've bred them to one particular stallion or two particular stallions for a number of years. So their offsprings are no good. The mare has no value. They haven't bred a winner. So you're losing on the double. Then you have the cost of your brood mares, your cost of your vet heat, all your other costs. So not just at the original cost of stallion, you've actually lost a huge amount of money, you know? And
I get that sense, Michal, of risk being high in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, and people think about horses and they probably think just automatically about money, you know, as a perception of it and the industry. But risk is high.
Yeah.
Rewards are there, but risk is high. But you're not afraid of risk.
No, you can't be. Thankfully, I have a wonderful wife in Sheila, and she's the opposite to me in some degrees. So we come to a happy medium. I will risk everything, you know, but she'd be a bit different in that regard. But look, it's a bit of a yin-yang situation, but risk is high, but reward is very high, especially with the stallions. If we're fortunate enough to come across a half-decent stallion, it's not just life-changing for us, but it's game-changing for industry. Like, I will live and die, but the stallion bloodlines will continue on. Do you know, and as successful stallions as we've seen in the past, whether you're talking about, you know, the likes of Northern Dance or Dane Hill or whoever you want to refer to, or local to us, you've got Kodiak, like their bloodlines will live on for future generations, and people will refer to them bloodlines. Unlike me and you, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'd be well, you know.
So and that's the dream.
That's the dream, and that's the romantic side of it, you know. But it's also the commercial side of it, that if you do hit one of these stallions, it is game changing, you know. And the beauty of it is that nobody knows. You know, we currently see Havana Grey standing in Whispery Manor. You know, hands up, did I think he was going to be a stallion? He is now? No, probably didn't, you know. Yeah. But look at him now, do you know, and he's an industry-changing stallion. So look, nobody knows where these stallions come from. In America, you got likes of Into Mischief, Good Runner, and probably from, like, you know, they're game-changing stallions in America at the moment, and they probably weren't perceived to be as good as stallions as they're turning out to be.
I think, Michal, we've had a great chat, and I really appreciate you having me and Mike here. And I think I'd like to leave it with the idea of dare to dream.
Yeah, dare to dream for sure.
Yeah. And that's going to be the name of your next horse, Dare to Dream. Dare to dream. That was a nice way to finish. A huge morning. I really enjoyed our time with Michael Orlandi here in Starfield Stud and over in Stonehall Paddocks. You know, somebody who's deeply passionate about what he does. And I love that little line at the start if you were listening. Be like a sponge. Learn. It's a risky business he's in, but he's really making a go of it. I think this is a place to watch and a leader within the racing industry. For me, it was a great morning. I learned so much, and I'm hoping you're going to join us for episode 7, the next episode of What's the Story. Until then, see you next time. Welcome back to episode 7 of What's the Story. My name is Tommy Heffernan, veterinary consultant with Precision Microbes, and this evening we're in Sligo. We're just going to have a chat with somebody who I have great time for. He's a dairy farmer, Christopher Tuffy. I've chatted with him before. I think his attitude alone is worth listening to. We're going to talk about cows, dairy farming and what was a tough year, and a bit about calf health.
I do think there's too much blame being laid at the dairy farmer at the moment. I think it's imbalanced. I think it's unfair, and we go back to stress and the spring we've come through. And I think Bill O'Keefe there in Kilkenny there had a great tweet there last week about the mental health of farmers, and we constantly feel like we're being bombarded in the wrong side, in the wrong way.